Hello everyone, welcome back to Byte into Future. This is the iconic New York Stock Exchange, and I'm welcoming my next guest, Thomas Lee. And then, Thomas is the fifth guest I have in the show today. And then the first guest that has been here before, you have been in this room, next to this room. So you are a repeat interviewee, I guess, or the speaker at New York Stock Exchange. So that you must have a fun job.
Thanks, Harry.
So welcome, Thomas. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Howie. So I started my career in the hedge fund business, which explains why I've been to the exchange before. Spent a couple of years doing that, investing in the public markets, and in 2019 made the switch to becoming an entrepreneur, started a business where fundamentally we collect and sell data to hedge funds, to private equity funds, to investment banks.
So you were doing hedge fund stuff before that. So you are kind of how hedge fund works inside out. Now you in 2019 you realize, hey, this technology can help me to do things. So you started this company to solve your problem, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a fair representation. The problem really comes down to it was a data problem. So with hedge funds, but not just hedge funds, financial services in general, collecting data is a very manual process, right? So someone like you who spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, you're very used to automation because there's a lot of technology around automation. Here on the East Coast in financial services, it's more white glove. We have a general reputation for servicing clients and customers using people and time and effort and dedication, and that's all well and good. But what that also usually means is when it comes to data extraction and data production, you have a lot of manual humans just typing it into Excel files.
How does your company do differently?
Yeah, so what we did 5 years ago was we basically saw the relevance of using AI to do data discovery and data extraction.
Give me an example.
Yeah, so if you were to look at a series of tables in financial statements, for instance, right, which is the income statement as an example, one of the challenges for humans to go through 100 income statements is to open 100 files, find the income statement, identify it, recognize it, take the data out, put it into Excel, and create time series over the 100 income statements. But if you were to think about how to recognize an income statement, like having the income statement itself as an entity, there are half a dozen models that you can use today without even talking about like large language models. There's half a dozen models that you can use to identify an income statement, right? So
because not all the income statements, are the same. They all have their peculiarities.
But they're all slightly different, but high level they are very similar.
Right.
And if you think about what AI is very good at, it's very good at that stuff, right? Where the Control F test might fail. Control F won't get you all the income statements, but a properly trained entity recognition system will be able to very accurately capture all the income statements. So that's one of many examples where if you take a step back and you ask yourself, what is the human doing when you are typing in data into Excel? It really is first finding the document, then finding the relevant part of the document, typing the data in, and merging all the data into time series. And when you scale that out across Wall Street, across every analyst, every bank, every fund, you realize that that's a very arduous task. And it's pretty thankless because at a fund, you're trying to make money by investing. At a bank, you're trying to create transactions, help your clients. Very, very rarely would you say that the ability for me to hard code data is a competitive advantage. It's just a cost. Right.
It's not a business differentiation just because you are able to plug the data from the income statement to the right place. It's not interesting enough. However, it's a lot of work.
It is, yeah. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of junior analyst time. And it's time that could be better positioned to do the really high ROI work at a bank or at a fund that today is spent just plugging data away into Excel.
So you started this journey in 2019 when you saw that so much manual inefficiencies in your previous life, right? So 5 years later, how far you have moved, for the thing you wanted to do in a very different way?
Yeah, I mean, we've been very fortunate that our product has a pretty good pickup rate in the market. So we're a Series B company. We've been growing very, very aggressively, and more importantly, we've been bringing on a lot of partners that have been design partners and product partners with us. That's helped us develop the product. So a lot of the large hedge funds, banks, and so on have been both customers and partners in helping us design what types of data needs to get in, what's the time requirement, the speed requirement, what is the accuracy requirement, designing all the SLAs around the product so that it will become a better capability for the rest of the industry. Generally speaking, our vision is, we're not trying to build a whole suite of product for everybody, right? We're not trying to be the next big platform play like the Bloombergs or the Cap IQs of the world. There's obviously a market for that. That's not our ambition. Our ambition is to just clean all the dirty financial data in the world, put it together in a really powerful, easy to use, magical experience of a data package, and enable companies with the right data assets for them to do whatever they want to.
Yeah, I like it because the goal looks modest, right? Not sexy, but you are doing, you are automating such a big swamp of the work that otherwise takes lots of the I think the way you put it, thankless. It's a thankless job, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of that. Part of my question is, how far we have gone so far, meaning that, hey, so many data analysts,
Right.
Here, different hedge fund. Have we solved this problem? Or are we halfway there? Or this is the first inning, second inning? Like, what's your assessment?
I think, we're like a fraction of the first inning.
Fraction of the first inning.
We're so far away from a complete solve of the problem. So the problem scope is actually really well defined, which is there is a universe of publicly available information out there. It's a finite universe. Therefore, you can theoretically collect all the data. The challenge is how do you collect it at scale and accurately. So data consumption on Wall Street is extremely precise. So 99% accuracy is as good as useless. Yeah, it's as good as useless.
Yeah.
Right? So you need accuracy rates that are extraordinarily high, and the higher your accuracy requirements, the more edge cases come up, right? You start realizing that, hey, extracting data from an income statement table is easy, but what about a footnote? What about something in a different language? What about something from a chart? That's where you realize that the algorithms that you have to use become far more complex really, really quickly. And because we don't relax the accuracy requirement, the complexity scale just expands rapidly. So what we are able to do today is really just a fraction of just all the data that's necessary to be consumed in financial services. And you can even make the argument that a lot of data that exists today are not leveraged in financial services because there's no easy way to get access to it. Right? It's just
Give me an example. What you mean by that?
So if you look out at the world of regulatory filings, private companies, for example, every private company is not fully private in the sense that they don't file anything with the regulators. They absolutely do, right? If you're incorporated in Delaware, exactly. Every year you have to file franchise taxes.
Money.
You file Form D when you raise money. You have to file all sorts of other documentation when you do. Those files can be accessed by anybody in a public domain, right? It's publicly available. Every bank holding company, every regulated utility, they file all these regulated documents. The data in those documents is not centralized anywhere. You can't really go and just collect it all and just put it in a database. You can't tomorrow write a line of query to figure out every single municipal bank's Tier 1 capital ratio. There's no platform for you to do that.
Like in the example of the private companies, filing those, documents when they raise money or whatnot.
Yep.
That's that thing, allow the company like a Crunchbase or PitchBook to exist, right?
Yes.
But that's still just one narrow angle based on from your point of view. There are way more
data. Yes. Yeah. So when you think about the vertical application. So there are private data that's publicly available, like number of shares for a private company, and there's private data that's not publicly available, which you can find on the Crunchbase and the PitchBooks, right? They will actually interview companies and just receive the data directly from the companies. So that platform play, again, it's not what Daloopa is about. What Daloopa is about is organizing the world's publicly available data into a clean and accessible database.
So that you have a abstraction layer so that people can just do SQL query on top of
right.
it.
People can extract Excel files out of it. You can do whatever you want on top of the
How
data.
much of the what you're doing is structured data versus unstructured data?
Yeah, from a volume perspective, I want to say 70 to 80% of our data is probably somewhat structured in the sense where you look at it
It's
as
table,
a human, you can
right,
sort of
right,
understand
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It might not be a neat table, but you can understand it. And the rest is unstructured. From a time perspective, though, it's like 95% unstructured
Because
data.
it's
so much
harder
more
to-
difficult, yeah.
What are some examples of the unstructured data?
So footnotes in a financial disclosure, or data out of a transcript, so management transcripts. CEOs, CFOs every quarter get onto a call. They disclose information, trying to get those data points, string it into a time series. Companies frequently disclose analyst day presentations or investor day presentations. In those presentations, you'll have charts, figures, and sort of like one-time data points that you need to extract and put them in a time series. Bar charts, pie charts, yeah.
So this is we have been talking about why you started this company and then how much accomplishment, even though it sounds like a lot of progress, but still in terms of how much can be done, it's still a fraction of small fraction of what we as an industry can do, right?
Yep.
That's great. Now I want to do a little bit context switch here. CHGPT, right? November 2022, CHGPT came. What was your reaction? What does that mean to your business? Does that change much? What's the implication? I'm just curious, especially in the context of the unstructured data processing.
Yeah, so in a way, it wasn't that big of a shock to us because in 2019, when we started the company, we were an AI company. So we've been relatively plugged into the game. We were very pleasantly surprised with how ChatGPT consumerized large language models and basically the transformer architecture behind it. But we weren't surprised that the technology
You were not
exists.
surprised by the power, but you kind of see that how fast it commoditized this, otherwise a pretty complicated technology.
Correct.
Is that good news for you or bad news for you from as a CEO founder of a data company?
Yeah, considering we are an AI-based data company is phenomenal news for a couple of
But
reasons.
does that make the playground the level played?
That's a great question. So no, it actually doesn't.
Tell me more about it.
It dramatically expands our advantage versus everybody else because in the ChatGPT landscape, what typically happens is you end up having the guys who are developing their own AI and the guys who are leveraging everybody else's AI. And when you leverage someone else's AI, that algorithm, let's say you use Anthropic or ChatGPT, it's not precisely built for your vertical use case. And repositioning that to your vertical use case, it's not quite the same. It's like custom building software for yourself and using someone else's software and retooling it to your own use is not going to have the same effects.
It's a long distance away.
It's
from
pretty far,
a amazing GPT, whether Anthropic or ChatGPT, to it's usable for financial industry like this place.
You're right. The gap is very, very large.
And then from that point of view, even if you had a GPT-5, GPT-6, GPT-7 today, there's still a huge gap.
There's a huge gap, and I think the thing about the financial industry to appreciate is one thing for the product to be very good, it's another to solve a change management problem, right? So the product could be really good, but you have to understand that the user's use cases are not naturally what the product is designed to do. ChatGPT is a chat-based bot at the end of the day, and you're communicating with it via chat. But if you look at a financial analyst use case, the programs that they typically are running on top of are Microsoft Excel by far and above is number one. Outlook is number two. PowerPoint is number three. If you're on the buy side, probably like one of the big platforms like Bloomberg or FactSet or something like that. You need to be within those platforms. You need to somehow create an experience that maps really well to those platforms, and you need to convince your users that the change required is a very low lift.
Smooth enough.
It's a very smooth lift.
People are
right?
not going to throw out whatever they did yesterday and then jump onto a new shiny
Yeah.
solution.
So if you were to be selling, so we don't sell to like tech startups, it's just not a relevant space to us. We sell to companies that have change management procedures where changing user behavior is top of mind to decision makers. Being a good product is absolutely critical, but understanding the requirements for your product to be onboarded, to be adopted is also critical.
That's great. Can you share an example that you do things, you design your product a certain way to make sure that, I can accommodate, this solution will be accommodated by the change mechanism, change process better, right? Because someone outside the financial industry, let's say myself, right? I do a company, this is going to be tough for me to appreciate at least the day one. Give me some example.
Sure. So in finance, one of the most common things you see an analyst do is build and maintain a financial model.
Right.
That's basically just you have an Excel file that consolidates a bunch of historical data about a company, and it expresses your view of the future through forecasting what you think future financials are. People love their own models. They spend a lot of time building it, they spend a lot of time thinking about it. They don't want to move away from that.
I see.
Historically, what financial vendors have done is they've looked at that model and they've said, hey, what if I gave you a better model? Use my model, right? My data sheets, my data panels, they're better, they're deeper, they're cleaner, like whatever. The challenge here is that now you have a change management problem. You're telling a user who spent the last 3 months of his life building and maintaining this thing to get rid of what he has done to adopt a vendor solution. That's a difficult change management
It's
problem.
a mission impossible.
Right, and you scale it up to the size of a bank or a hedge fund or private equity fund, you don't go anywhere.
So using this as example, for instance, what kind of things subtle things you did?
Yeah, so for us, the reason our customers use our product is because we work within the model. So if you've built a model, the key challenge to maintaining the model is when companies report earnings, it's earnings season right now, companies are reporting earnings, you now need to go grab the 10Q, you need to read the press release, the 8K, and you need to take the data and put it into the model. That is painful and difficult, and you're not going to download someone else's model to do that. What Daloopa does is we literally, at the click of a button, will magically update your model in your format, in your Excel file for you. Right?
Interesting.
So there is no change management.
Basically, what you're saying is that for financial analysts, there are certain things they are very much whether religious about or loyal about or they like. You don't want to tell them, hey, just to throw away, do things differently. But then there is some boring task, right? Import the data from the the documents, and put that into the Excel. It's, what I'm doing it, you are doing it's the same. It's not like there's no religion, no process. As long as you do that right, I'm going to use it, right?
Yep.
So essentially, what Daloopa does is identify those problems, right?
Yes.
So the way you answer my question is, the way the work we do, right? The mission, the company has is exactly to solve those problems rather than all the sexy things I give you the trajectory prediction. You don't do that.
We don't do analysis, yeah. So we think of ourselves as sort of like the plumbers of the industry, right? The infrastructure guys. What we are trying to do is we are trying to deliver the cleanest commodity to our users. The ironic thing about the data business is you don't want to provide like deep insights, or at least we don't want to provide deep insights. Our customers are the people who are creating deep insights. We want to provide them with the cleanest set of commoditized data possible. Right? This data exists publicly. It's just very difficult to consolidate. It is by definition a commodity, right? We are getting it from only public domains, and we are cleaning it and making it very, very pure for our customers to consume and analyze. Right? The hedge funds, banks, private equity, mutual funds, they have the human capital and the horsepower and the DNA to analyze good data. That's their job, that's what they're trained to do, that's what they want to do. it's our job to give them the cleanest data possible.
So everything you said makes tons of sense to me. But there's one question in my mind. What is Bloomberg doing? Why they are not doing this? Because
Yeah.
they see private information, public information, put that into a place that is easy for people to access. I thought that's what their mission is.
So yeah, I mean, the broader question is why doesn't Bloomberg Fax that IQ? Like, why doesn't everybody do it? The simple answer to that is it's very, very hard to do, and it takes an incredible amount of focus on just this one problem. So the advantage of a startup over an incumbent with a lot more money, like the joke is one of these guys spent more on marketing budget than the amount of money I've ever raised, right, in a year. But what huge marketing budgets and huge amounts of people doesn't buy you is it doesn't buy you a maniacal focus. And when you have maniacal focus, you're able to go through edge cases at a speed and a cadence that you cannot do with capital. Because at the end of the day, it's all about taking data that anyone can get to 99% and pushing it to 99.99%. That's a question of focus, not a question of capital.
Wow, this is such a great line, right? For every entrepreneurs out there. You said two things that really resonated with me, and also, that insight surfaced again and again. Just even today, you are the fifth, entrepreneur I'm talking to. One is, hey, even though it may look like an AI problem on the surface, but really it's the data problem, right? But the second thing is it's the focus, right? Why other company cannot do it, why the Microsoft couldn't do it, why Bloomberg. But at the end of the day, your biggest advantage is the focus. So the focus and the data, these two angles, I think it's really good. My last question to you, right? May is the month of AAPI. So you were born and raised in Singapore, right?
Yep.
Came to US 15 years ago or so, right? And as a AAPI or Asian entrepreneur, anything you wanted to share with your fellow Asian entrepreneur, you feel like, hey, something I wanted to share with them?
So the fortunate thing about, so I live and work in New York, the fortunate thing about being in New York is it's highly meritocratic, right? If you build a good product, if you are able to design a business well, you will be able to find the right resources to help you. You will be able to raise the capital. You will be able to hire the right people.
Despite where you came from,
none
where
of that
you were
matters.
born,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
So it's and I don't know if this is true for a lot of other places, but I can speak for New York that it's absolutely true that it is. You don't feel like anybody has a real advantage in starting a business because at the end of the day, it comes down to the quality of the product. It comes down to the quality of the people that you're able to hire, and which comes down to the quality of the product. So my general feedback is like, don't start with the assumption that there is a disadvantage. Start with the assumption that if you can build a good product, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yep. Yeah. I can also say that it's the same in Silicon Valley, right? It may not be true everywhere on the planet, right? But I think, what you said is very true, 100% true. I would even say that in Silicon Valley, in Europe, in New York, where that, your real friction or your real stop you from winning customers, whether the product makes sense, right? Product market fit or not, right?
Yep.
Less about other factors. So I'm so glad, I'm so glad to hear that, in the May, in the celebration of the AAPI month, right? This is, I know that you are super busy. Last time I talked to you, you said, hey, I've been here so many times, the joy is now, coming here to this wonderful place. Of course, this is a wonderful place, right?
It's a cool
232 years, I would like to come back, I'm pretty sure, this is cool, for everyone. But the reason you come here in your busy schedule is to support or hopefully inspire many other Asian entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for coming over here. For everyone out there, I hope that you actually got a chance to learn a lot about, AI data, right? What is the key thing with the AI company? A lot of time is about data, right? Data is, it sounds like just data, but there are so many dimensions in it, right? Hopefully Thomas give you insights into what it means in the financial industry. And then the second thing I want you to take away is, your single biggest weapon or differentiation against, big guys like Bloomberg or Microsoft is the focus. Having been entrepreneur a few times myself, I can't agree more with Thomas. Thank you for watching. See you soon for the next guest.